Welcome, geeks, to another exciting episode of Rockin The Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad everybody's here because I'm really excited about this episode because I get to talk to my longtime good friend, Carl Franklin. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but I've been looking forward to this episode, catching up with Carl. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I hope you are too. So this is show 81. And Simon, can you go to the slides? There we go. So this is slow. I'm already messing up. Show 81. And we're going to, with Carl, we're going to be talking all about Blazor today. So if you have your Blazor questions, please post them now so we can get them answered. Because that's why he's here, to answer your Blazor questions, and maybe we can learn some new and cool things that are that have come out or maybe coming out in Blazor. So I can't wait to catch up on not only Carl but Blazor too. Don't forget, my new book is out about code performance. I hope you go pick it up. I worked super hard on this book last year. And I learned a lot writing this book, and I think you'll learn a lot reading the book, and that's why I put it out. So I hope you go pick up a copy of it. A lot of the information's on my website too, if you want to check that out, but it's behind a subscription model. All right. Also, I want to promote my Spartan code and program. So I hope you go check out my Spartan open source libraries and NuGet packages. I work really hard on them. I do a major release every quarter, and I'm constantly putting all the common code that I write at various places into here, along with some other goodies and things like that. And so I hope you check it out. And I also hope you check out my Spartan Dev tool, which helps Visual Studio developers. And so I hope you go download it right now and start trying it, and give me some feedback because I need some feedback because I haven't had very many people try it out yet. So I need more people. So I also have a new article out on CSharpCorner, Real World Coding Issues Part 1. And in this article, in this series of articles, I'm showing just some of the common coding issues I see over and over again when I work at companies. And a lot of the advice I'm giving in these articles is from a code base that when I started, there was about, I think, over 114,000 code violations. And so this article highlights just some of the same common things I see basically in every project I go to. So I hope you go check out part 1. I've already written part 2, which turned out to be my longest article ever. It's like over 5,000 words, and that'll be out next month. So I hope you go check it out. All right. Well, before I bring on Carl, I wanted to and maybe embarrass him and myself, maybe. But this picture is of Carl and I playing with Phil Weber at the top of the Marriott bar the night before the VBits conference back in the late 90s. Carl and I did this for a number of conferences where we would basically pack the top of the pack the bar at the top of the Marriott in San Francisco. And I had a blast, and it actually was the first time I earned a little bit of cash for playing. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I have really fond memories of playing with Carl, and also here's the guitar. Oops, sorry, it's cutting out. But here's that same guitar that's in that picture. And I was thinking about this picture this morning, and I remember Carl played it one of the years, and I remember Carl saying to me 2 things. One is, "Dang, that guitar's loud." And I go, "Yes, exactly. That's why I bought it." And then he also said, "Who did your fret job? This is amazing." And I go, "Yes." And that guy who does my fret jobs back in the 90s is still doing the fret jobs on my guitars now, because his shop is just an awesome guitar shop, and a lot of local musicians, including famous ones, goes there and gets their guitars fixed up. Okay, so enough embarrassment about the past. So I want to welcome Carl Franklin, is an executive vice president of vNext, a software development firm focused on modern methodologies and technologies. Carl is a 20-plus year veteran of the software industry, co-host and founder of .NET Rocks, among other podcasts, the first and most widely listened to podcast for .NET developers, a Microsoft MVP for developer technologies, a senior executive at Pwop Studios, which is his studios, a full-service audio and video production, post-production studio located in Southeastern Connecticut. You can read all about Carl by going to carlfranklin.com. Welcome, Carl.
Happy to be here. Wow, that was, I can't believe that was me in that picture. Seems like another life.
Your hair was different color.
Yeah, I had a scruffy face. You know, I stopped shaving the beard. Oh, how old was I? What was it? Probably 1995, 96?
Probably a little later than that, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was born in 67, so you can do the math. I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I try to keep the beard, you know, when I get older, but I just end up looking like Santa Claus. So
yeah, me too. I figured when I retire, I can start growing my beard in like the summer, and then I can go work as a Santa Claus at the mall or something.
There you go. Yeah. So when
this is what we look forward to in our retirement, right?
It's when I get up in the morning and go, then I'll be ready for the boneyard. So how you doing, man? I haven't talked to you in a long time.
Yeah,
last time I was on the show.
Yeah, last time it was last year. I think it was for the 20th anniversary show.
Yeah,
I've been doing okay. It's been kind of a crazy year. I had a contract just ended, so I'm looking for a new position. Anybody out there? And you know, we were talking about that crappy San Diego weather earlier, and but I'm excited to go. You're going to the Denmark conference, right?
Copenhagen. Yeah.
And I'm going too, and I'm really looking forward to, you know, hanging out with you and Mads and, you know, everybody else who I haven't seen since, you know, before COVID. And
all the crazy kids are going to Copenhagen.
Yeah. And Mads and I talked a little bit about it yesterday, and him and I, hopefully we're going to hook up and, you know, go around Copenhagen and see the tourist sites and stuff, kind of like what we did in India. You probably don't know, but in 2018, Mads came to India to speak at the same conference I do.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
And him and I spent 2 days before the conference touring Delhi and New Delhi basically by ourselves with a tour guide. And I had not only such a blast, you know, becoming friends with Mads, you know, and learning about him and all that, but I just had a really great time learning more about Delhi and all the, you know, different places that we went. And
Mads,
you know,
is a super, super nice human, in addition to being one of the smartest people in the world. You know, he went to the same school as geez, why I'm having a senior moment here, you know, Mr. C Sharp, the guy who wrote C Sharp. Anyway, there's been
now you made me do it. Dang it.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, all these guys went to the same university, maybe even had the same professors. Mark Seaman also went to that same university. He's like one of the smartest people I know.
Yeah, Mads is a great guy. Him and I have coffee talks like once a quarter. Anders Heilsberg. Yeah.
Jeez,
I had dinner with him.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah, I know. He's also I loved being in meetings with him, you know, back when he was, you know, talking in front of us at the MVP summits and stuff. And the one dinner I had with him once, I thought was pretty cool, you know, to be with, you know, the guy who, you know, architected C# but yeah.
Were you a Delphi guy back when we were doing VB4?
No.
Did you ever jump into Delphi?
Nah, I kind
I
of
remember all the
avoided it.
Delphi people were saying, "Neener, neener, we have a compiler," and
I
you
know.
know, and Anders was, a
And
big
where's
part of
Delphi
that too.
now? Yeah, what's
Yeah, I don't
Delphi
know,
doing
but
now? Nothing,
I
right?
do remember cracking Delphi, and I remember seeing all the event handlers, and in VB, event handlers were the Wild West. You didn't
Oh
have
yeah,
object sender and event args, whatever,
right.
but that was the standard in Delphi, and I recognized that in .NET the
Mm.
minute I start. I'm like, you know what? This seems very familiar, like a sort of standard interface for event handlers.
Yeah, yeah.
Marco Napoli said, I did use Delphi.
So there's one person that did.
There's
So
one person. Well, Mark Miller,
Mark Miller did.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
Code Rush was originally a Delphi product.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah. And I
Speaking of
think Dev
code,
Express still has a Delphi library that they support to this
huh,
day.
huh. Do you know that Code Rush is free now? Do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's what I recommend in all my articles now, because especially the one that the part 2 of the article I was talking about in the beginning,
yeah.
um, every single one of the issues I talk about, I also show the setting you should make in your editor config file.
Wow.
And then I don't do this for everyone, but on the ones that Code Rush really helps me refactor these issues, I mentioned Code Rush, and because that's what helps me, do it really, really quick.
So just yesterday, Richard Campbell and I interviewed Mark Miller
Mhm.
about building apps using OpenAI.
Mhm.
And that's kind of coming out in .NET Rocks on the 15th, on Thursday the 15th. But I won't give it away. But let's just say that Miller is doing amazing things with AI and Code Rush,
I bet.
and you're definitely going to want to listen to this.
Oh yeah, I definitely will, because that's where something like AI will really be able to,
Mm.
really help us in writing better quality code, which is my big focus these days, along with performance, right?
And here's the hint: interacting with Visual Studio in a way you never have before. I'm just going to drop that bomb and leave it right there for you to figure out.
And interacting with Visual Studio is not easy, so
No,
it's got to be a tough job
anything that
for.
can make it easier. It's good.
Yeah. And have you tried Copilot?
A little bit, yeah. I don't use it all the time, but I tried it when it first came out, and I got on the beta and everything, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm,
I haven't set it up yet. I'm definitely going to, because I'm working on a new edition of my coding standards book, so I definitely want to talk about it in that.
mm,
But yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see a little bit what happens in the next 4 or 5 months about these kind of tools and AI and
yeah.
but everybody out. My son asked me this question yesterday. He sends me this text, goes, Dad, does ChatGPT write good code? I wrote back, no. Because Simon is the one who told me this, that it writes incorrect .NET code.
It
And
does, but
yeah,
it's a good. You got to think of it as a rubber duck,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You got a problem. You want something or someone intelligent. I hate to anthropomorphize it, but an intelligent person to bounce ideas off of. Hey, what about this? Tell me about this code. What do you see here? Is there any
yeah,
problems with it, or how do you do such and such? At least you can test it right away.
yeah.
I had a conversation with ChatGPT about something I wanted to do in JavaScript, and it was Mark Miller said yesterday, and this is great. It's like a roaming child, you know. It's like yeah. You can't. I tried this. I tried its code, and it didn't work. And I said, well, this doesn't work. And it said
Yeah.
very confidently, oh, I am sorry. I had a slip of memory.
Yeah, I know.
Blah, blah, blah.
I
I'm
like
so
how
sorry.
it apologizes.
Yeah, it
to you.
apologizes if it's wrong. Here's the real code. And I tried that, and that didn't work. And I tried
Right.
another one, and that didn't work. And it had like 3 or 4 different examples that it kept going through. But just the process of going through that, I discovered how to fix it, like
Yeah.
with just some simple algorithmic stuff. And that was valuable to me. But
Yeah.
you can't just copy and paste code and say, oh, I'm done with it. It
Well,
might actually be very helpful, but it's also trained 2 years ago on data from 2 years ago. So
Right.
there may be other options available,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the next article that's coming out, the part 2 article, there's one. So, everybody that reads what I write or talk about knows that almost pretty much every code example I show is real. I don't
Mm,
make up fake things anymore because
right.
I want to show people real
Anymore?
code
What
anymore.
do you mean? What did you used to do?
Well, a lot of people, when they would do code examples, they would just make up, just random code that you wouldn't use in the real world. So I always try to show real code. Here's what somebody wrote and here's how to fix it, right?
Oh,
But
okay.
but one of the things I was talking about in the next article was about the differences between the switch expression and the switch statement, right? And I wanted it to write an example of the switch a statement, right? And because I didn't have a good example for it, and it actually did a really good job, I have to say.
Mm,
And it did actually, just for that little blurb of sample code,
mhm,
which was only like 2 methods. It it
mm.
it was right on. It was perfect. But anyway,
I had a yeah.
going back to my son, I said, Paul, if you have ChatGPT write code, please send it to me so I can check it for you.
Yeah, right. The other thing is I got an answer of no, that's impossible. You can't do that. And then I went ahead and figured out how to do it. So, it's not smart. It just regurgitates language that it
Yeah,
has, and synthesizes language that it has in its training.
yeah,
And sometimes it'll just make stuff up. Like,
I know.
it will literally just make stuff up. So
It
yeah, you can't trust it as
Yeah,
fact.
I do know for a fact it has problems counting characters of text because
Mm,
I've been using it to write tweets to promote my articles and stuff, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And every time I tell it, take this text, write a tweet with a room for a link in it, and almost 100% the time it's too long. And I go back and I say, can you shorten that? That's too long. Or I say, that's 40 characters too long.
Yeah.
And it goes,
Yeah, it
oh,
doesn't understand that.
I'm sorry. And here's a shorter one.
Yeah, well, I asked it. I play the NPR Sunday Puzzle with Will
Yeah.
Shortz, who's the puzzle master of the New York Times crossword. And it's always word puzzles. And so he basically gave this puzzle where you have to take a famous singer's name that has six letters in the first name and 4 letters in the last name, and you had to do some weird stuff with it. So I just said to Chat GPT, give me a list of singers where their first name is 6 letters in it and their last name has 4 letters in it. And it was like, okay, Engelbert Humperdinck, it's like, and I said, okay, maybe I wasn't clear. Only 6 letters in the first name and only 4 letters in the last name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it said, oh, okay, here's, it gave me some other long names. So it just doesn't, it doesn't know about counting. You're
No.
right.
Yeah.
It
It has
doesn't
problems
understand
counting.
letters.
Yeah. 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 It does. It's so I'm trying to train it.
Yeah. It's, Stephen Simon says, I used it to create dummy JSON.
Yeah.
Great,
That's a good idea.
great use.
Yeah. Oh, here's one more tip I'd like to give everybody because this is what I've been doing, and then we should probably move on to Blazor. But
Mm,
one thing I've been having to do is I've been complaining for a very long time about the crappy documentation on the Microsoft site about .NET, right?
mm, yeah.
And it just keeps getting worse, and so I don't even go there now. I just ask ChatGPT, and it produces a awesome, correct documentation for whatever I'm asking it.
Mm,
And so, my days of looking at, Learn or whatever it's called now, is
My
probably.
experience of the documentation of Microsoft has been different. I thought it has gotten really good in the last 5 or 6 years.
I'm talking about the documentation of like the editor config file settings, which is basically, you
Are you
know,
talking the .NET framework, the Windows version, or
no, no,
.NET
no,
Core?
done a core.
Mm,
Uh, they do a really bad job at documenting the editor config settings,
mm,
and even if you look at like the documentation for methods and classes and stuff like that, that's not great either,
mm.
you know,
Wow.
and worse is the code samples in it. And
Mm,
so yeah, I've never really liked the documentation there, and I'm hoping that, and not only, you know, is ChatGPT giving me really good documentation, but it does it like that, right? I don't have to spend 30 minutes searching for what I need to search for, right?
mm.
Yeah. So
Wow.
anyway, let's talk about Blazor. What's
Sure.
new and exciting in Blazor Town, Blazor Train?
Yeah. Wow. Blazor Train is still cranking.
Yeah.
I once I sort of ran out of critical topics, I started coming up with solutions. You know, like here's a solution that I did for this particular problem. And then, you know, when .NET 7 came around, it gave me an opportunity to go back and redo videos that I had done for .NET 5 or .NET 6
Yeah.
and update the code and stuff. So I've been doing a lot of that lately. But the exciting stuff is Blazor Hybrid, you know, that's coming. That's come not Blazor Hybrid. I can't remember what they're calling it, but this
Yeah.
new hybrid model of hosting where you can have client side WebAssembly components and server side components in the same Blazor United.
Oh, that's
Boy,
yeah,
man,
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess I haven't had enough coffee today. Yeah,
It's Saturday, you know.
it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
And probably the way that most people will implement Blazor is using that auto mode. So everything starts in Blazor server, which of course is very easy to do.
Right.
And then as you're in the background, all of the assemblies get loaded to support WebAssembly
Mm.
in the browser. And then once they're all there, then it just magically switches over. But in talking to Steve Sanderson about this, they haven't really thought through any guidance, at least last time I talked to him, about how to architect your code so that it will work either in Blazor server or Blazor WebAssembly. And
Mm.
my thought is, well, you have to, if it's just going to switch automatically, you have to assume that you're going to be on WebAssembly. So that means
Yeah.
no secrets, you know, no, you know, you won't be able to, yeah, you'll have to put everything behind an API layer or a service layer. You won't be able to access Azure resources or cloud resources directly
Yeah.
from WebAssembly, like all of those things. And then just all the security issues that
Yeah.
you have to think about when you're
That's what I was just
building a
thinking.
browser.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're building a browser-based client, whether it's JavaScript or anything else, you really have to be rock solid about security.
And that's a really tough part, you know, because I've
Yeah.
experienced that at past
Mm,
contracts where, you know, I got really frustrated because, you know, trying to get, you know, security work, and in this case it was JavaScript, you
mm,
know, it was just a freaking nightmare. You
yeah.
know, if we just did it all in the back end, we wouldn't have an issue,
Yep.
right? Because then none of the security comes into play, right? Except for just logging on, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this WebAssembly is a whole nother thing that, you know, well, I haven't seen hybrid yet, but I've kind of backed away from WebAssembly kind of because of those issues. Unless I really want to do something in WebAssembly, I'm going to
Yeah.
kind of stick with server, you know.
Right. Yeah, Blazor server is my go-to, especially because most of my clients anyway are, you know, they don't have they're not building the next Facebook or Twitter or
Hmm.
whatever, you know, they don't have the public facing high volume sites. So they have, you know, a few thousand customers or whatever, and you know, maybe a few hundred will be online at one time, and it's just not a big load to put on a server. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, the benefits of having to, you know, not having to create an API layer for everything and do all that locking down and security, and then dealing with DTOs and, you know, data transfer objects and all that stuff.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
much easier.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, what's I'm having a brain fart. Simon, who was the guest that did the Blazor open source project that Mahesh likes? It was, what's that
Was that
called?
the web forms thing Jeff Fritz and friends did?
No. It's this other guy who has put out this whole really kind of like portal framework for that it works with, that is run by
Octane?
Blazor. Octane. There you go. Have you checked out Octane?
I have not,
Yeah, I thought.
but I will.
Yeah, I think it's Octane reminds me a lot of ASP.NET 2, right?
Hmm.
Because, between, .NET 1.1 and 2, the ASP.NET team did a lot of work to put in all these things to spin up of a website easier, right?
Hmm.
With security and all those things that made it really, really a lot simpler than it was before .NET 2.
Wait a minute. Is this Sean Walker? Is this what
Yeah,
.NET Nuke used to be?
yeah, Sean Walker. Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm talking to him. I'm talking to him on .NET Rocks in a couple of weeks.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I
Yes,
think
I haven't
Octane
seen
is
it, but I remember what this is. Yep.
so that I like Octane because it allows you. It basically provides a plug and play model, right?
Mm,
That's not in Blazor, and then it also it does a really great separation between its code and your code. Like
yeah.
you can update the entire Octane framework without even touching your code,
Yeah.
right?
That's
It's
great.
two separate. Yeah, they did a really good job at
Well,
architecting
Sean
this.
Walker, I would assume nothing less. I mean, he
Yeah,
he basically was put together .NET Nuke, which was the CMS wizard type framework
right,
for web
right,
forms.
right.
Everybody used it, and
Yeah,
it was
back then.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Octane
So
is kind
yeah,
of like that too.
I'm looking forward to talking to him.
Yeah, he was on my show I think last year, um, talking about it, and I just haven't been able to get. I mean, I did do a little bit with it, but and I did write a couple little plugins, but I haven't done like anything real with it yet. So
Mm,
um, I plan to someday, just because it just does all the plumbing that we don't like to do is done for you, right?
yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
what else
So,
is exciting in Blazorland?
we talked to Sean Walker in oh no, yeah, that was a long time ago. 2019.
Hmm,
Yeah, he was talking about server-side Blazor.
yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, anyway, what was your question there?
What else do you want to talk
What
about
else in
Blazor?
Blazor? Well, I Blade now this is the real definition of Blazor hybrid. Blazor has become not just a web technology for me, but a UI technology that I
Hmm,
can write any kind of app. I don't care what it is. A Windows Forms app, a WPF app, a Mac desktop app, a iOS app, an Android app, all of those things you can use the same Blazor UI that you use in Blazor web applications
hmm,
to do the UI. And it
yeah.
just is the UI layer. And that's really possible because of an Edge, Microsoft Edge based web view component that Microsoft put out. And I believe Steve Sanderson did the original kind of prototype for it, a very, very thin layer that uses Edge that, you can host. And, that this is at the time when Slack was very popular, and it still is very popular, but, it of course uses the big old ugly engine that,
Pretty ugly, I know.
big ugly, downloads like gigabytes of stuff just to have what looks like a desktop app.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this is very, very exciting to me. Um, I like XAML. I made some money with XAML. You know, I have happy XAML customers. However,
Sure.
if I never have to use it again, wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, it was good for its day, but yeah,
It
probably not.
was.
Yeah,
But then we
yeah,
have flavors of XAML, right?
right. Right.
Whereas, and Microsoft has a big job with Maui because they have to essentially do everything. Every little thing has to be implemented on every platform and behave and look the same way. And they
Yeah.
don't have control over those platforms. But you know who does have control over those platforms? The browser manufacturers,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So the browser on an iPhone is the browser on an Android phone, is a browser in a desktop on any platform, right? That browsers have already, they are the cross-platform platform, the
Right.
browser,
Right.
and CSS and HTML and JavaScript is all in sync across all the browsers now. It wasn't always that way,
Right. Right.
but it is now. And so now you can expect that the Blazor code that you write with markup and CSS and JavaScript is going to look and act exactly the same on all the browsers, on all the platforms. Well, I
Yeah.
won't say exact because
Yeah.
but the differences are nothing like, the problem with XAML is you're supposed to be able to do X and the documentation says you can. And when you do it, oh, it doesn't work on iOS.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on that. That's a bug. All right. But, browser's already done.
Hmm. So I know Blazor does this, but how well is Blazor at auto detecting and then switching what it spits out based on the browser that's hitting it? You know what I'm saying? Because doesn't it
Um,
change the output basically because of the browser?
no,
No.
no,
Oh.
no. The browsers, unless we're talking about Internet Explorer 11, which doesn't support WebAssembly, and Blazor server. Let's just get that out of the way. Blazor server, it's just plain vanilla CSS, JavaScript, whatever. There isn't any
Mm,
if this, if that. And WebAssembly is the same way.
mm.
So yeah, the browsers are in sync.
Yeah, that's good. Because
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but back when I started working on websites back in the 90s and stuff,
Oh yeah, it was terrible.
it was a nightmare trying to get
Yep.
your site to look the same on every single major browser, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, oh gosh, I
Well, the
remember
major
doing that.
browsers now have two, they have Chromium, the Chromium engine, which Edge and Chrome, the two most populars now use. And Firefox uses WebKit, I think, and Safari uses WebKit, but those are pretty much in sync. Not
Yeah,
yeah,
I never
not
use
as not as
Safari.
much. Yeah, I don't either.
I don't like Safari. I don't even like it on my iPhone.
They Apple recently did an update to an iOS version that fixed a whole bunch of issues with Safari
Mm,
and
mm.
brought it into the 20th century, no, 21st century.
Fine. It brought it into 20th century.
Yeah.
That's what I whenever I talk about my frustration with Office products, I go, yeah, the Office products really haven't changed in this century and yet. And whenever I say that as a Microsoft person around, they look at me going, "What?" I go, "Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
look at
Think
it.
about it.
It's hardly anything." One thing that really upsets me is PowerPoint because, you know, back when PowerPoint was last changed, right?
Mm,
When they went to the new file format and all that stuff, you know, um, it hasn't really taken advantage of all the computing power that we have now,
mm,
right? There's all this power they have and they're not using it,
mm,
right? Like you can't do green screen images, you can't do green screen videos,
mm.
right? And you can't, there's all these things that should be doing, right? And it just, nothing happens in those teams, I think, much anymore.
Welcome to two grumpy old men try to talk
Yeah.
about technology. All right, back in my day.
Back in the day, it was so much better.
Yeah, but it really wasn't though.
I know.
I am so happy with the state of Windows and the state of, in general, the state of Visual Studio and the state of .NET, like and GitHub and like all the tools that I use. It's just all smooth sailing.
Yeah, Azure too,
Azure's
except for the
great.
outage yesterday, but,
Yeah,
other than that,
that was happening right when we were doing a .NET Rocks, and Richard was looking for a comment. He goes, the site is down. And I'm like, oh, let me go to the portal. The portal's
Portal's
down.
down.
Oh,
And you know what? I tweeted a picture to Azure, with the message that
mm,
showed, and they replied to me and said the engineers are working on it. And then
yeah,
as
it's
soon as
cool.
they had it fixed, they replied to me again. I'm going,
That's
what?
great. Yeah,
Why are they telling me it's fixed? I can't believe they actually did that. Right.
that's cool.
I know. I thought it was pretty cool, even though that's going, and that happens. And I don't think anybody can get upset because,
Right.
there's no 99, there's no 100% uptime. Right.
So getting back to the Blazor hybrid model,
Yeah.
where the thing that might not be obvious is that yes, you're using the Blazor component model to write your code, but in a web browser, you're in a sandbox.
Right.
However, on an iOS device or an Android device or a WinForms app or whatever, you have access to the entire machine and the whole API that's below that machine.
Wow.
So the sky's the limit.
Really? In the browser, you automatically get access to all that?
Well, you're not in the browser really. You're in the web view, right?
Mm.
And that's hosting your Blazor, but your code is running on that platform
Yeah.
in that environment. So your code can, if you're in a Windows Forms app, for example, you can go look at files and go in, load files in and whatever, and select one and, or write to a file. You can do anything that you can do in a WinForms app, but instead of using, the designer for UI, you're using Blazor page.
Yeah.
And WPF the same way.
Yeah. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So what else besides the hybrid model, which sounds really interesting? And they showed that at Build, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've been showing it nonstop since it was available.
Yeah.
And I just love it. And I also do this other show besides Blazor Train called the .NET Show.
Hmm.
I don't know, it just came to me. So this has been focused on Maui, and I started it before Maui was really available. So we started with Xamarin Forms, and but in Maui, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I started showing, the Blazor hybrid model in Maui and blah blah blah. And here's what it looks like in XAML, and here's what it looks like in in terms of the code. XAML, it's like a full page, and the Blazor code is just this little snippet.
Yeah.
And so I quickly became convinced that I was going to write the rest of my demos and stuff in Maui Blazor. But I did a series recently of taking your Maui applications, your iOS and Android applications, and publishing them to the app stores and everything that's involved. So, I mean, I started from create your account, here's every little step and every place you have to wait and what you have to wait for, and all the little details. So I actually have a .NET Rocks app in both app stores. You need to install Test Flight for the iOS version, but if you go to the Android Google Play Store, just search for .NET Rocks and you see the one with the blue background. That's it. And I even left an Easter egg bug in there for people to try to find. And only 1 or 2 people have found it so far.
Really?
But I got a lot of bug reports and some really good bug reports. But there's one in particular that's a deal breaker. And so, and it's going to require, well, I'm not going to say what it's going to require because I don't want to give it away. But people can watch that last episode. I think it's the 4th one. And see at the end, the Easter egg, how to check it out and tell me what you think that bug is. And I'm of all the right answers, I'm going to pick one at random, and that person's going to win a treasure trove of prizes.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote my first Easter egg back in the 90s, and I don't know if I'm correct, but I would venture to say a lot of the younger people now probably don't even know what that is, and
I think they do because they're in movies
because
and
they're in
popular
games,
culture
right? They're in
and in
games, right?
games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
something, if you do something a certain way, something happens, right? You
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But
yeah. The first,
this is more of a bug than an Easter egg. It's an
right, right.
intentional bug.
Yeah, I think the first one I wrote was for this company that is only like 3 blocks away from me. That's why I live where I do.
Hmm.
When I worked back there back in the late '90s, and so I'm not sure if I asked them if we could put all the developers and everything's names on the about screen. I might have,
Hmm.
uh, but and if I did ask, they said no because that's why I did the Easter egg. And so what I did is if you were on the about screen, right, and you did a certain key combination, right,
Mm. Hmm.
then the about screen would basically turn into this like movie credits thing,
Mm.
right, where it would just slowly scroll up with everybody who worked on this
That's
project,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't tell anybody. There's only me and one other person that even knew it was there, right? So
Wow.
it went out into the box, you know, the CDs and the boxes, and management, as far as I know, never was aware of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we should take some questions. If I mean,
yeah,
it's probably
the,
pretty obvious, but if anybody has a question for
yeah.
me
If
about
everybody has
Blazor,
any questions, I kept forgetting to tell people. We don't get a lot of questions at 10 a.m.,
yeah.
uh, but maybe we'll get a few.
Where's my coffee?
Yeah. So what else in Blazor or anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, let's see. That is the current state of the art. Let me just go to Blazor Train and take a look at my latest topics here.
Oh,
Maybe
I did have
something
a
will
question
jog the
about
mind.
hybrid. So
Yeah,
with hybrid, can you use .NET 7 and .NET 8, or do you have to use standard
it's
2 or
.NET 8.
something? It's .NET 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's coming in .NET 8. And wait a minute, hybrid, not okay. Blazor hybrid is when you use the Blazor coding model to build Windows apps, WPF apps, iOS, whatever. But Blazor United is the new
United.
feature.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. Blazor United is new to .NET 8, and I would definitely recommend just looking it up. If you're not familiar with it, you can go to Blazor Train. I believe I interviewed Steve Sanderson in February. Wow, was it February 2002? Holy crap!
Well, that was a long time ago.
No, it couldn't have been 2002. No, it's February 2003. I got that wrong. Yeah, so this is check that out. And in the show details, I've got his his introduction to Blazor United that he did that blew my mind on
Mhm.
YouTube. .NET Community Stand Up, where he goes into a little more detail as well. But I thought it was a good interview because you know, I have questions, right? I
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
questions about these things, and
Yeah.
hopefully they're your questions as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done a bit of streaming audio as well, like uh audio components in Blazor.
Hmm.
So for uh picking input and output devices and recording and playing, and that's what that streaming audio thing is. It's a GitHub repo called AVN Audio, and that's a component with a demo.
Hmm.
It records audio in real time and gives you an event with a buffer, which is just a byte array, and that's your recorded data.
Huh.
And on the other side, when you start playing, you can call a method to add a buffer to the output buffer, right?
Hmm.
Add a byte array to the output buffer. So you put some signal R in between there, and you've got streaming audio.
Wow.
So
That's
that's
pretty cool.
yeah, that's a kind of a cool thing. And there's a lot of Blazor trains I've done are around tools that I've written in Blazor.
Hmm.
Like one of them is called Blazor Sliders. This is episode 40. And the GitHub repo for Blazor Sliders, if you just look for Blazor Sliders, this is multiple panels with sliding splitters.
Hmm.
So, like in one of the cool things about early VB was that you could have a panel on the left and a panel on the right and put a splitter, and now you can,
Right.
right? Well, you can
Right.
do that with Blazor sliders as well.
Hmm.
It takes up the whole parent, area,
Hmm.
and then you can have nested sliders within panels and different horizontal and vertical panels, and you can go nuts with it. And that's
And
actually being used in production right now.
yeah, and Jeff Fritz has written some open source controls and stuff for Blazor too, hasn't he?
He has, and
Yeah.
the thing that is really interesting that Fritz has done is his web forms uh, thing with Fritz and Friends. He basically has this repo where he's made Blazor components that have the same programming interface as web forms controls.
Right. Right.
So you can essentially take your web forms project and do a little magic with his tools, and you're using Blazor instead of web forms.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I know because he took like every single HTML control and turned it
Yeah.
into Blazor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's pretty
So,
cool.
it's interesting. I don't know of anybody who's done that in production, but what it does do is it shows you, you know, it shows you what Blazor is in the context of a web forms application.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have X, now you have Y.
We got a comment that brings back memory web forms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I still like web forms and win forms. I hate to tell you.
I liked programming it. I didn't like how web forms worked in production,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It
sure was a good programming model. And that's
it
essentially what
was.
Blazor Server is, except
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. Microsoft, in the last 10 or 15 years to me, has kind of moved away from more of the rapid application development stuff. But I think I'm feeling they're kind of moving towards it again. I'm not
Mm,
sure, but
hmm
I've been kind of hounding on them to do that. But because that was always like the beauty of web forms and win forms is you could easily spin up, a project and get it working pretty easily, by
Yeah.
just using those two things, right?
Yeah. I guess you and I were brought up on the visual designer,
Right,
the drag and
right,
drop and stuff.
right.
And that doesn't really work with scaled, scalar graphics.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas, win forms and web forms were sort of pixel based. So you could move them around and be very
yeah,
exact about where you were, but they didn't really scale all that well
yeah.
without
If
without
WPF did, I mean, that was one of the
yeah.
beauty of WPF is it
But
was able to
but
do
the
that.
designer is like not
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You had to use that other program pretty much to design it,
Yeah.
uh,
What
and
was that
yeah,
blend?
blend, yeah.
Yeah. And then you're getting sucked down the rabbit hole of XAML
Yeah.
and trying to claw your way back. There's one other really very popular episode that I did of Blazor Train, which is episode 15. I updated it to .NET 7 and re-recorded the episode with .NET 7. So application state is keeping application data outside of components and pages, so it's available. Think of it as your session object for web
Right,
forms, right?
right.
Yeah, but there's a lot of nuance to it, and it certainly is really, really powerful if you combine it, that state with the binding features of Blazor component model. It's very, very powerful.
How true, extremely fast and complex forms. Yeah. So besides Blazor Train, are there any other like training sites you can recommend for people to go to if they are learning Blazor?
Yeah, Awesome Blazor is a great curated list of Blazor resources. That's a good place to go looking for stuff. A lot of people are doing Blazor training, including me. I did this past year several remote on-site training classes, mostly in Europe, to groups, then and basically they'd get on Zoom and all day for 3 or 4 days. And so that's something that I like to do. And oh my God, I can't leave without telling you about this. Code in a Castle. Did you see this?
Mm-mm.
If you go to codeinacastle.com/Blazor2023, I'll just wait. codeinacastle.com/Blazor2023.
Hold on. I had to write it down first. Hold
Yeah.
on. Code in a
castle.com/Blazor2023.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So a friend of mine in New York is a huge .NET Rocks fan and a developer in fintech down in Manhattan. And he also is a follower of the keto diet. So he's been at our keto fests and things like that. He just had this crazy idea that he wants to get together with a friend of his in Tuscany who knows the area and knows all the chefs and knows this particular castle, this Castello di Magona in Tuscany. And it's not like a hotel you can rent a room. You have to rent the whole castle for a week.
Wow.
In order to be there and use their facilities. So it's out of the reach of most people to go there. So he basically wants, and I'm doing this, I'm teaching a Blazor course at this castle, but I call it like a traincation because it's only for 6 days. It's only the first 4 hours in the morning, 9 to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the rest of the day is sightseeing and tours and restaurants and, all sorts of great activities that are planned. And so you bring your spouse and you get a room in the castle and most meals are included. And like I say, there's food, there's wine. It's like this luxury vacation sort of training. And yeah, it's expensive. It's more expensive than taking a workshop at a conference, but it's the experience. You won't get this experience ever unless you're in a group. And so this is
that sounds really cool. I wish I could go.
Yeah, you know who's interested is Scott Hunter.
Really?
He's like, yeah. He said a couple of things have to line up, and then we're there, man. Like
he's going to bring his wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I think that's a good idea. I think, when you were saying that, I was kind of remembering back to, when you and I were, speaking and doing things at the VBITS conferences and how, the conferences always had something for us to go do, like, the trips to Yosemite and we went to the Silicon Valley tour one year and, we did all these cool things that really not only kind of showed the appreciation the conference had for the speakers, but allowed us to learn more about the local area and spend a whole day on a bus with you and Rocky and all these other people. Yeah. Robert Scoble and all these other people. And that was so much fun. And it doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately. And I really wish it did because, the last time a conference did anything for me was when I was in the Ukraine and they set up 2 private tours with me.
Wow.
One, the first tour was with a driver, and we went like an hour and a half or so outside of Lviv, and we castled 3. I'm sorry, we went to 3 castles, that were built in like the 11th and 12th centuries.
Yeah.
Which I've never seen before in my life because we don't have those here, right?
Sure.
And then the second day, it was just me and my tour guide, Diana, and we did a walking tour, Lviv, the whole day. And I had so much fun doing that stuff.
That's
right.
great.
And learning more about Lviv and the Ukraine and all those kind of things and why I've wanted to go back ever since that experience.
Yeah. It's amazing when you can be in a place where there's more to, the day than just the code. You because you learn better that way. You're relaxed. You're like appreciative of the beautiful surroundings and the attentive staff and everything. And you're just like, oh, and you're not burning out. It's like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go.
Well, maybe you've come up with a great idea. Maybe conferences should go to half days.
Yeah, right.
for this reason, right? Because because we just don't get the opportunity to do anything usually when we go to a conference, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the big problem is, of course, for that amount of expense, people want to jam in as much content as they possibly can.
yeah, yeah.
But we have the other issue here where you have the spousal acceptance factor with this traincation,
Yeah,
and you also have the boss acceptance factor. Like it's too expensive for a training by itself, and it's pretty expensive for a vacation by itself. But when you combine those two things together, it warrants a discussion with the boss.
yeah,
Hey, let's talk about this. Maybe you can pay for half,
yeah.
and
Why
then
not?
half of it I'll take my vacation time, right?
Yeah,
And you pay
yeah,
for the training half or whatever. So it's a bit of a challenge, but this has never been done before, as far as I know. So we're
yeah,
blazing a trail.
yeah. That sounds good.
Mm.
Well, I've got to let you go before Simon gets mad at me because he wants to go to bed.
Okay.
Right, Simon? And it's too bad we didn't have more questions, but thanks for everybody who's been watching, Carl. So, Carl, before I let you go, I already asked the question I asked all my guests last time you were on.
Mhm.
Gosh, dang it. Hold on a sec. So, I have a new one I
Dave
just
likes
came up with.
vodka, by the way.
Huh?
Dave likes
It's not
vodka,
good.
by the way. Yeah.
So here's my new question. So, what brings you happiness in your tech career besides income? What
Oh
makes you
man.
happy?
Believe it or not, I love to be able to take a whole day and give myself a challenge, a coding challenge, you know,
Yeah.
and just go to it, and the time just slips away.
Hmm.
It's a very enjoyable experience for me.
Yeah.
And most people don't get that luxury because they're busy fixing their code for, this and that, and coding up structures and properties and methods and putting things together and everything for work. But it's great when you can just give yourself a day to say, wonder what I could do. Oh, I
Yeah.
see this program. Yeah, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
I love it.
I, yeah, that's a great idea. That's why I wrote an article, a series, like a two-part article or something, right when COVID hit or right before about, how I would run a software team if I were the owner of the company or the
Mm,
CTO or something.
yeah.
And one of the things I always said, which I've really never been able to do at any of the companies I've worked for, is every Friday afternoon would be like a hackathon, right?
Yeah.
No work, no releases. We're going to hack on something and try to come up with something new or just learn something new or something
I
like
think
that.
Google does that, don't they? Don't
I
they
think
have
so. Some
one
companies
day
do.
one day
Yeah.
a week that they just call, like, your time to innovate?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think all companies should do that because number one, you should never release on Fridays anyway, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah,
Never.
so you shouldn't be doing that. So the release should have been done already. And now it's
Yeah.
time to
Tuesday,
start
preferably.
decompressing before the weekend starts, right?
Yeah.
Because by Friday at noon, people's minds are already
Yeah.
taken off to think about what they're doing this weekend, right?
Right. Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I gotta let you go. So
Okay.
thank you so much. I can't wait to hang out with you in Copenhagen. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's gonna be fun.
Thanks for being on the show, and please tell your wife hello for me.
I certainly will.
Okay. Thanks
All
so
right,
much.
Dave. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, I hope you learned something from that, but I did learn something from that, but also it was great to catch up with my longtime friend, Carl Franklin. I would say Carl is maybe the one of the few people I've known since I basically started programming, and one of so it's I don't know how to say it. I just like being around Carl and talking to him and playing guitar with him, like I showed you. So maybe Carl and I will be able to do that in Copenhagen in August. So crossing my fingers. All right. Here's some geek humor for today. I found. I think this is funny. If you love me, meet me at first table, table 00, table 01. Yep. So yeah, don't do that if you're going on a date. as always, please think about our friends in Ukraine. You know, I just talking about the Ukraine, and I know that the Ukraine is on a new offensive against Russia, and so please think of them, and let's hope we get this over as soon as possible so they can start rebuilding, and so I can go back. Because one of the other things I loved about being in Ukraine, besides seeing castles and stuff like that, is their food is really, really, really good in Ukraine. So I love good food. Also, don't forget to help me help the kids from the slums in Delhi, India, by going to those links and donating money either through my GoFundMe page or going to the Voice of Slum directly. You know, these kids really need your support and help. Dave and Chandy do an awesome job at helping support kids and getting them out of the slums in India. It's a really worthy cause. So I hope you take a few minutes and go donate whatever you can, whatever that is. I know they greatly appreciate it. All right. Well, speaking about another longtime friend I've known pretty much almost as long as Carl is Rocky Lothka. And so he's going to be on in 2 weeks. And so I'm really excited about that and catching up with Rocky. Rocky is another one of my favorite people from back in the days. And so I hope you'll come watch. Also, don't forget to go donate blood this weekend or as soon as you can. You know, all the blood banks are in a shortage right now. I'm actually donating tomorrow. There's me getting my, I think my 10-gallon certificate. Now I'm over 16 gallons now. And so please go donate blood, because someday you might need it. And so good karma is a good thing, right? And as always, please email your suggestions, comments, whatever you want to Rockin The Code World at CSharpCorner.com, including any guests you want me to invite on the show. And I will try to get them on the show. And with that, have an awesome weekend, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.